been playing games like these since I was really young. Some of my earliest memories were me and my brother fighting off waves and waves of digital ninjas while my mom yelled at us to come eat supper. Ever since Samuel L. Jackson walked out onto the stage at the first Video Game Awards in 2004, things started to change. Games were no longer something to do after your homework. They started to become a sport, as well as new revenue for celebrity appeal. Now, personally, I don't like where this trend is going. The Hollywood mainstream appeal is assimilating my culture into a more popular trend, in essence destroying the culture I grew up with and identify myself with. I guess the question is, what makes a true nerd these days? Well, let's find out. Welland, Ontario, our first destination on a quest for the modern nerd. We all know for nerds to exist, there has to be school. Your average nerd is going to be good at math, one that does all his homework, and still has enough time to get the high score at the arcade. We're on our way now to go see where nerds start and where their cliques continue to develop.
Outstanding.
This is Karen Curley, my older sister and fellow middle child. She is currently teaching grade 9 English and Religion at a high school. I figure grade 9 is a good place to start to find nerds, as this is when social cliques in high school start to form.
That's awesome. I'm good at this. I'm really good at this game.
Have you noticed a change in the nerd stereotype from when you were in grade 9 to when you're teaching it now?
Oh, definitely. When I think back to when I was in grade 9, nerds were those geeky guys or geeky girls that were very antisocial. They preferred to just go home and I assume play on their computers or play their video games. And now, I mean, I taught grade 8 last year, and probably one of the most popular kids in my class went home and played video games and stayed in for recesses and talked to me about what games he bought for his Xbox and what games he's playing with his computer, and actually trying to get me to buy similar games so we could play online together. So it's really interesting the shift in what a nerd would be then, because again, he was the most popular kid in the class.
Now that you've seen both sides of the nerd spectrum, do you think that it's an internal factor or an external that creates a nerd? You know, nature versus nurture.
You know what? I'd want to say it's hard, because when you take nerd as someone who's being someone who is more intelligent, let's say, than other people, and you know, gets the good grades, and if we take nerd from that standpoint, then I would say that's more nature. But when it comes to the computers, the video games, that have to be nurture, because it's the kids who can afford the Xboxes, or it's the parents who buy the PlayStation 3s and whatnot, and the computer systems, and they're the ones that have it accessible to them, so they become better and better and better at it, and then it ups their status as nerd.
Patrick Pascuzzi, Karen's player 2, proposed to my sister a year ago. He is about to become my stepbrother and currently teaches grade 11 math. When Patrick was in high school, he was definitely not a nerd. He was what you would call a jock, stuffing grade 9s into common room boxes, playing on the high school football team, and more than likely poking fun at the nerds of his day. Like my sister, he has now seen both sides of the equation, from a classroom chair, and now at the head of one. From a socialite standpoint, during your high school career, have you noticed a drastic change in the way nerds are presented in the mainstream?
Back when we were in high school, the idea of a nerd was one who would sit and play video games, and that would really be it. Now, the shift has been a lot of the popular type kids who are playing sports and whatnot are also playing video games, and that's really where the change is everyone is now playing these video games, and everyone is really becoming very technologically savvy.
As a result, do you think the jock populace has also changed?
Oh, for sure. The jock populace are definitely becoming more inclined to play video games, and just this past year I was the junior football coach, and during the practices you'd hear the football players chatting about various video games, whether it be Xbox, Wii, and so on and so forth. And not only that, even with their iPods and all those kind of electronic devices that they rely so heavily upon, they're always chatting about. So, there has been that shift, and there is that change with the jock population is becoming more technologically advanced, you could say.
I asked that last question because with the introduction of a famous Xbox title, the face of video games changed forever.